Trust me, I know we are all super excited for the NFL season to start, but before week 1 even begins, I'm going to give you 5 wide receivers that you need to go trade for. Get them on your team right now before they pop off in fantasy football. All right, so the first wide receiver that I think you need to go trade for right now, get him on your team because he will be a league winner. That is Keenan Allen. When he was healthy last year, a lot of people don't realize, but when he was healthy last year, Keenan Allen was elite. And I know the word elite gets thrown around a lot. I am not misusing it. He was elite when he was on the field. He dealt with injuries from weeks 1 to 10. But if you look at his game from weeks 11 to 18, again, he was elite. In receptions, he was first. He averaged 7.5 per game. In targets, he was second. He averaged 10.4 targets a game. In receiving yards, he was fifth, averaging 84.4 receiving yards a game. He had the third most receiving touchdowns. In that time span, he was a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, and he had the fourth most points per game, averaging 18.8 fantasy points per game. Oh, and by the way, he put up all of those numbers while playing a career high percentage of snaps in the slot. His career average is 43.6% in the slot. Last year, in 2022, he aligned in the slot 64.6% of the time. That's going to be Justin Herbert's favorite target all year. Make no mistake, Keenan Allen is still the number 1 alpha wide receiver on this team. This is no shade at Quentin Johnson or Mike Williams. I think Quentin Johnson is going to be a great future wide receiver 1, but it's not your time. You're not that guy, pal. Not year one. Not year one. It's still Keenan Allen season. He was dominant in the slot last year, and he's going to be dominant this year as well. And let's talk about the injuries, because I can hear people screaming through their phones right now, commenting, oh, he's old, he's going to get injured. Injuries are not predictive. This is not the same as Julio Jones. When Julio Jones started dealing with hamstring injuries, he never got back to elite form. When Keenan Allen had his hamstring injury last year, we saw him return to elite form. Do not let injuries stop you from drafting really good fantasy players. And lastly, this is the perfect offense for Keenan Allen. It favors its pass catchers. Every year since Justin Herbert has been the starting quarterback for the Chargers, they have been top 5 in passing attempts per game, passing volume. A couple factors there. Firstly, think about their personnel. Austin Eckler, we love him because of his pass catching prowess. However, he's a super inefficient running back on the ground. That means when they are at their best, they're throwing the ball to their running back, to their wide receivers, to their tight ends. The running game has never been a good thing for this Chargers team. Secondly, they are all around their quarterback, who they just signed a huge deal to, Justin Herbert. Now you add Kellen Moore, and I am predicting, personally, it might be bold, but I am predicting in my projections that they will throw the ball more than any NFL team here in 2023. All of their strengths lie in the passing game. So, a couple players that you could trade away to get Keenan Allen. Now, there's no perfect formula, right? There's a lot of counters, a lot of trades take days, but I'm going to give you some names that you can start a conversation with, okay? I'm comfortable to send away a DeAndre Hopkins for Keenan, a Deebo Samuel, a DJ Moore, a Drake London, a Ken Walker, a Dameon Pierce, a George Kittle. Depending on your format, I'm speaking specifically in PPR here, I'm comfortable to trade those players away. I don't think you're going to regret it. Okay, the second wide receiver that I believe, and this is someone that's low key. He's gone throughout the offseason. I've been talking about him, and he's still not getting the respect that he deserves. He's way higher in my rankings than his ADP. That is Brandon Cooks of the Dallas Cowboys. All Brandon Cooks has done his entire career is put up numbers. That's all he's done. 6 of 9 seasons, over 1,000 receiving yards. 6 of 9 seasons, 5 or more receiving touchdowns. 6 of 9 seasons, wide receiver 20 in fantasy or higher. 4 of 9 seasons, wide receiver 15 or higher. His average targets per year, 107. 9 years in the NFL, averaging 107 targets. That's super impressive when you realize how much the game has changed from 9 years ago to now. And he's still averaging over 107 targets per game or per year. And his career targets per game, 7.3. Those are so impressive. In 2022, he was a wide receiver 49. There's context here. And he had 11.2 points per game. Let's look at the form he was on last year. In 13 games, again, wide receiver 49. But if you look at his 17 game pace, he was on track in 17 games, his pace, to finish as a wide receiver 27. 75 receptions, over 900 yards, and 4 touchdowns. A wide receiver 27. And that might not sound impressive, but it is, especially when you consider and you dive in to how awful his team was last year, the Houston Texans. Guys, he was on track to finish as a wide receiver 27, and this is the offense that he was in last year. The Texans last year, 30th in points per game, 31st in total yards per game, 25th in passing yards per game, 31st in first downs per game, and Davis Mills, their starting quarterback, was 29th in QBR. Speaking of Davis Mills, let's remember how good of a year he had. That's sarcasm, right? Completed 61% of his passes, threw 15 interceptions, regressed in almost every imaginable category. I mean, guys, we are talking about a team that, with a clear mind, started Jeff Driscoll at quarterback, and Brandon Cooks somehow was on track to finish as a wide receiver 27, somehow averaged 11.2 points per game, a startable flex option. Now, things are going to change because he is in a new spot. He's on the Dallas Cowboys in 2023, joining a team that has Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Tony Pollard, the same team last year that scored the 4th most points per game. And now they have 163 vacated targets left behind from Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown alone. Brandon Cooks should do exactly what he's done his entire year in 2023, his entire career in 2023, which is put up big numbers. And he is so affordable to go trade for. Here's a couple names that you could start a conversation around. Kadarius Toney, Gabe Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster, Quentin Johnston, Michael Pittman. I know that sounds crazy. I'd rather have Brandon Cooks on my team than Michael Pittman. Cortland Sutton, James Cook, and A.J. Dillon. Go get you some Brandon Cooks. Hey, just before I continue to my next 3 wide receivers, if you want an edge on your fantasy leagues with weekly rankings, with the Fantasy Hotline, which is a direct DM to us where you can ask us advice, with articles from all the best content creators on YouTube, then go ahead and use our promo code LAND when signing up to the Flock Fantasy website. There's a pinned comment down below. Check it out. I don't think you're going to regret it. Choose the Mother Flocker tier, and then you're going to unlock the Fantasy Hotline, which is a direct DM to us for advice. Maybe you have a trade in your inbox. Hey, Zach, what do you think about this trade? I'll let you know over on the Fantasy Hotline. DM us if you sign up, and we'll get you set up. Okay, the third player that I'm bringing you here, a wide receiver, super cheap, and there's definitely value. Let's talk about Van Jefferson for the Los Angeles Rams. Firstly, he will be the wide receiver 1 for this team until Cooper Kupp is healthy. Okay? Think about this. The depth chart currently, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, and a bunch of nobodies. A guy, I like Puka Nacua, but he's a no one at this point, right? Kupp will be the dominant guy when he's back, but we don't know when that's going to be. Ian Rappaport, at the time of recording this, the latest information that we know is that Cooper Kupp was in Minnesota visiting a noted body specialist to further understand his hamstring issue. I mean, if you're ready to go week 1, you're not going to see a specialist to understand the injury. If you don't understand it, then you go see help and you get help. And Ian says, while there's no firm word on his status, exercising caution for week 1 is the likely outcome. And I'm personally believing that it's actually going to be more than 1 week that Cooper Kupp is out. I've said it time and time again, with aging wide receivers, when they have a hamstring issue, the only thing that really heals it is time. That is the only thing that actually heals a hamstring injury for an aging wide receiver. So I wouldn't be surprised if Van Jefferson is a good start, not just this week, but multiple weeks. And I know it's easy to bash the Rams because they were so bad last year, but it's still the same Matt Stafford and Sean McVay who won a Super Bowl just a year and a half ago. And keep in mind that Van Jefferson, when he got back from his injury, he played 1 game with Matthew Stafford, but he still played from weeks 10 to 18. From weeks 10 to 18, he was the wide receiver 40 in fantasy football. Not incredible, right? You can see his numbers here. The kicker there, the context, is that he only got to play 1 game with Matthew Stafford in week 11. That was it. Okay. So Matt Stafford is back, much better quarterback upgrade. Now we know that Van Jefferson will start the year as the number one. Last year, Matt Stafford threw 33.7 passing attempts per game, which was top 10 in the NFL amongst starting quarterbacks. And the last time he was healthy, the 21 and the 22 season, the Rams were top 10 in passing attempts per game and top 5 in offensive points per game. Now, is this sexy? Is Van Jefferson a league winner? Probably not. But is he someone that could be a reliable flex option until Cooper Kupp is back? Yeah, I really do believe that that's the case. So here's some players that you could trade away or start a conversation with: Michael Gallup, Hunter Renfrow, Alec Pierce, Tajay Spears, Chuba Hubbard, MVS, Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's super cheap right now. And all the names that I'm suggesting to you guys right now are based on sleeper ADP at this very moment. So I'm going to get to 2 more names, but do me a favor. I've been talking a lot. Maybe drop a like. Let me know what you think in the comments below, whether you agree or disagree. Maybe help out the channel in that way. Okay, the 4th player that he's a my guy. I've been touting him all off season, and I'm super excited to see him. He is in the perfect spot for his skill set. Go buy Jordan Addison before the year begins. Okay, go do it before the year even begins. He's going to have a super important role in this Minnesota Vikings offense. Wide receiver 2 was a huge need for them because Adam Thielen left in free agency, leaving behind 107 vacated targets. Now, KJ Osborne's a fine player, but he's not Jordan Addison, okay? And I remember earlier in the offseason, a lot of people were, when I was talking up Jordan Addison, were telling me KJ Osborne is better. He's going to play. And no one's saying that anymore because they've all realized that's just not true. KJ Osborne is not the same caliber of player as Jordan Addison. But Jordan Addison is so important to this team because this team is built around the pass game. And last year, Justin Jefferson was being double teamed to end the season, whether it was 2 cornerbacks on him, safety over the top. No one could take coverage away from Justin Jefferson. Now you add Jordan Addison, the perfect puzzle piece, route running specialist, will get a ton of one-on-one opportunities, and he will eat versus one-on-one coverage. Very, very good route runner. And the Vikings offense is a perfect spot for him to be because he will get instant opportunities. Under Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings have been one of the league's heaviest passing volume offenses, and I don't see any end in sight. In fact, picking a wide receiver in the first round and letting go of your generational running back in Dalvin Cook would only lead us to believe that the passing game is going to maybe increase, right? Last year, only 2 teams passed the ball more than the Vikings. Hang in with me, the Bucs and the Chargers. And last year, the Bucs and the Chargers had multiple fantasy relevant wide receivers. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Even you could throw in Austin Eckler in there, right? And last year, only 3 teams had more passing yards per game: the Chiefs, the Bucs, and the Chargers. Kevin O'Connell is very clearly stating his goal for this offense and how he wants to run it. He wants to get even deeper into the passing volume for this team. Now, keep in mind, Kevin O'Connell also made multiple wide receivers fantasy relevant in 2021, Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Before Robert Woods' injury, if you look at their per game averages, both of those guys were very good startable fantasy wide receivers. And the last thing that I'll say is, I've been saying it all off season, but the Vikings are a fantasy factory, guys. Like, the Vikings are the perfect team to have a fantasy player on. Let me explain, okay? Offense wasn't the problem last year. The offense was great. The Vikings on defense, however, gave up the 2nd most yards per game of any team in the NFL. Only the Lions gave up more, and they were awful last year. They added Byron Murphy, the Vikings did. However, they lost Alvin Tomlinson, and they traded away Zadarius Smith to the Browns. What are you doing? Your defense was awful last year. You spent a 1st-round pick on a wide receiver. They're not going to be that much better, in my opinion. I currently have the Vikings statted out to be a top 10 in total offensive team plays this year, and I have them 3rd in passing attempts per game amongst the NFL. If Jordan Addison can hover around that 20% target share mark, that will be a huge value in fantasy football this year. So if you're looking to trade for him, here's a couple names that I would go send out right now. Now, you need to be patient with Addison. Don't expect him to be startable week 1. Might be week 2, 3, or 4, but he will be a league winner. Here's some names. Hollywood Brown. I'd much rather be attached to this offense than Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown has a higher ADP in Sleeper right now. Give me him over Mike Evans, over Michael Thomas, AJ Dillon, Gabe Davis, Kadarius Toney, James Cook, and Michael Pittman. I just don't want to be a part of that passing offense in Indianapolis. And the last player, the last wide receiver that I believe you should go trade for, it's not a homer pick. I am a Chiefs fan, but I think this is going to be a fantastic year for Sky Moore, and he does not have enough respect on his name in rankings and in ADP. Firstly, Sky Moore was actually, he's a good prospect coming out of college, okay? In 2019, he broke out as a freshman at the age of 19, contributing to 20.2% of his team's total receiving offense. Then in 2021, we saw a ridiculous number. Sky Moore, 41% of his team's receiving offense, meaning we know that he can be a dominant player at the next level. He has the early declare mark. He got the reception perception tick from Matt Harmon, and he got pretty good draft capital. Second round pick is pretty good. And last year, that might be what you're thinking. Why wasn't he good last year? There's a couple reasons, okay? Firstly, we all should have had lower expectations for a rookie in the Andy Reid system. Learning Andy Reid's offense is like memorizing where grains of sand on the beach are. Like, it is very complex. He was asking a lot of Sky Moore, and Sky Moore was just a sponge, constantly trying to learn, kind of throw you into the deep end until you really learn. Sky spent most of 2022 learning how to play the slot, how to play the X, how to actually motion within the offense. And now he's ready to go in 2023. More importantly, the guy who had his ideal role is now gone. Juju Smith-Schuster was the slot wide receiver for this team last year, and he played it well. But that was the ideal role for Sky Moore, and now he can finally step into it. Last year, Juju played 42.1% of his time in the slot. McCole, 51.3% of his time in the slot. Both of those guys are gone, and that will leave plenty of opportunity for Sky Moore to shine in his second year. At the moment, if you look at this wide receiver room, Sky should be the slot starting wide receiver. Then you have Toney and MVS on the outside. Now, Sky's not only going to play the slot, they're going to move people around, but he's going to be successful in that role. After all, last year, he had a lot of success on slot heavy routes, according to Reception Perception's profile. He was great on slants, curls, digs, and flats, all very important routes for the slot position. So I'm anticipating him to have a very good year. I think he's a lock for a top 40 receiver. And in that offense, he could be a lock for top 35, top 30, if things go right. So here's a couple players that you could trade away to acquire Sky Moore. First one's going to hurt my heart, but I view this player completely different in Dynasty than I do in redraft. Jameson Williams. I love Jameson Williams, but in redraft, give me Sky Moore. Still high on Jameson in Dynasty, but not in redraft this year. Adam Thielen. I'd rather have Sky Moore. Alan Lazard, Rashad Bateman, Tyler Boyd, Dalton Kincaid. Give me Sky Moore over all of those players. All right, those are 5 wide receivers that I believe that you should go trade for. You might agree with some of them. You might disagree with some of them. That's okay. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. Be respectful, okay? We don't need any keyboard warriors out here. That's not helping YouTube. That's not helping community. But thanks for watching. Drop a like, and I'll see you in the next one. Get these trades done as soon as possible. Good luck in week 1 of the fantasy football season. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.